Okay, we're going to talk about success derailment factors. And why am I going to talk about this today? Well, there's a lot of people who get started on something and then something gets in the way. They don't follow through. And if there's something throughout my career that I have really witnessed a lot, it's that. It's people who are like so hungry for completing a successful task. They started a company, but it just didn't go all the way to where they wanted to go. They started a diet, they just didn't lose the weight. They wanted to do a rehab program, they gave up. They wanted to save money, it just didn't work out. So, what are the things that get in the way? I'm going to give you five basic ones. I'm going to do it in kind of rapid fire, but this I think is useful. It's one of these kind of like take with me on a daily basis checklists. First, they pursued excitement versus purpose. And this is a big problem. They have a greater commitment to the fun than the actual work. And this, of course, we know just by way of personality is something that people who are very high on the open scale of the big five or would be maybe lower on conscientiousness, but by way of temperament, they would be what you'd call sanguine, right? They get excited about things, but then they calm down. They have a big list of New Year's resolutions. They're very excited when they're in the sales meeting and they're going to tell everybody that they're going to just turn over a new leaf and sell more than they ever had. They just love them being in the meeting because they're excited about all sorts of things. They dress nice. They know where the good parties are, but they calm down. But you don't just have to be a person who is sanguine to actually have this be a problem and get in the way. You could be an everyday person who's even choleric, but you're a little bit more committed to the fun. The idea of opening the coffee shop just sounded so neat, and you're envisioning all the people there happy, commenting on how amazing the drinks are. But all of a sudden now you run into a problem and it's not as fun and it's a grind. Or, in fact, you've got an employee that's problematic or quit or there's extra hours. So it's considering the entire objective and not just the fun that is essential, that you don't have the pursuit of excitement as much as you do the purpose. By the way, you see this in relationships where people are excited about things, but they forget that the purpose of entering that in a relationship, particularly that marital relationship, is that commitment to each other till death do you part. I mean, in essence, it's like a covenant to help each other get to heaven along with all the kids, right? It's more than that, of course. But that's a very real thing. And if you're just there for the excitement, it's just going to drift off and it's going to go away. The second thing is imprudent priorities or focus. This is the classic majoring in the minors. People do this all the time. And you see it at a catastrophic level. Why? Because most people actually um, they get either committed to an idea. So, for example, you know what? We should organize things this way in the office, or we should have this particular marketing plan because I really like it. And it's just not even relevant. So, I'm going to give you an example in my own business. One of the companies that I started, we started 1,300 and counting because the company's still going, magazines across North America. And these magazines have the same business model, but they're run individually by individual publishers in each one of these markets, and they have an enormous amount of autonomy, and they do fantastic work. And that autonomy gives it a little bit of flavor of individuality, which is also important. But one of the things that we found just didn't matter was like the masthead of the magazine. It literally had no impact or effect on whether or not people opened the magazine. And people opening the magazine means engaged readers, and great engaged readers mean a good response for advertisers. But yet, you'd have some people just so engrossed into working with their designer to change and adjust the design of their particular magazine in a way that yielded no actual effect. Now, I'm not saying that one of our publishers who wanted to make sure there was a good and nice and interesting design was doing anything wrong. They're actually doing something right. But once it's done and complete, fixating on that as though it's the idea is just a bad idea. In fact, one particular example of this is this one particular publisher who said, I just spent 3 months working on this. And, we worked so hard. And by the way, because of that, his sales went down. The leadership of his organization went down. He went from a high performer to a low performer. And, but he went to his first client and he said, I just want you to know that I've been working on the design of the magazine. And by the way, it wasn't because of negative feedback. It was just his own opinion, and changed all these different things. And he put it out in front of that first client, and the client said, I like the old one better. And that's the thing we have to remember, is that we get focused on our little ideas, thinking they're the best ones, and we start focusing on minor issues, not major issues, and they're irritating to people around us. So we have to have the big picture in mind all the time. The third one is shortcuts, and they catch up to you. The shortcut in sales would be promising too much to a customer knowing that you can't actually fulfill it. The shortcut with your employees is promising something about their future knowing that you can't actually fulfill it. The shortcut in finance is, borrowing from Peter to, or stealing from Peter to pay Paul, or doing something you shouldn't with the financial records of your organization. Taking shortcuts just doesn't work. It always catches up with you, and it needs to be known. You need to know it immediately. The fourth thing is self-deceit. And, this is an interesting thing. Like anything that you have in your business or in your relationships that is not equal to and I say it this way, I'm going to say it in a grand, big way. A passionate love affair with the truth is going to get you in trouble. So why do I say it that way? Well, most people, when they're younger or they're starting a business, they don't really have a passionate love affair with the truth. There's a lot of self-deception. They deceive themselves because of ego or embarrassment, whatever it might be. But the more that you learn to love reality, the better off you're going to do in building your business. See, you'll see people get marketing data back that says their idea was a bad idea. The person who loves the truth goes, wow, I'm so glad that we know that my idea was bad because we're going to do this better idea. The person in the self-deceit is so filled with ego that they are angered by the truth, irritated by the truth, because they love their idea more than they love the truth. And that's just the case of human nature for a long period of time. But a passionate love affair for the truth is the thing that brings you to a solid basis in reality, and people start to trust you too. 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 is 9 + 7 on a Saturday if you have blonde hair. It doesn't work that way. And so when we confuse ourselves about small t truths, whether it's marketing data, biological data, whatever it happens to be, we have problems in our world. Now, no secret here that I believe that small t truth leads you closer to Jesus, which is really the ultimate aim in life anyway. The work that you need to do to get to heaven. And of course, Jesus is, his sacrifice on Calvary is what gets us there. But we participate. In fact, the readings today in Mass, Jesus was asked by a young man, how do I inherit eternal life? And he said, follow the commandments. He told him to actually act and do and behave, not just how to think, but follow the commandments. And so this is an important thing to remember. When we follow the commandments, we follow truth. And the more we follow truth, the more we are led to the truth. And I think that's an important thing to remember. The fifth thing is unrealistic expectations of the work-reward relationship. An example that I give on this is, because I'm on a carnivore diet, I eat fermented foods and things like that, which are a part of this program. And I had so many health issues that I needed to do this, by the way. Like I was supposed to get every one of my joints, or not everyone, but my shoulders, my hip, and my knees replaced. And I just didn't want to deal with that, so I went with kind of a natural thing, along with stem cells and a few other things that I'll do another episode on. But when you are carnivore, it brings up enormous conversations. Other people always say, it's amazing how many people say, I tried that. And I said, what do you mean you tried it? And they said, well, I tried it for a couple of weeks. It didn't work. Or I tried it for a couple of months. I didn't like it. Well, it can't work in 2 weeks. And not liking it in 3 months is the normal path, by the way. I think it took me 6 months on it before my body, which was like rejecting it in many ways because I was addicted to carbohydrates, because everybody is. And the habitual things too, wanting to have this at a certain time socially, or, just having cravings at first. Once I got past that 6-month mark, now it's not only, and I'm not selling carnivore. I'm just talking about the process, by the way, the work relationship, reward relationship. Now it's very easy to do. In fact, it's not only easy, it's preferred in my life. I like it better than anything else that I've done before. I find it more convenient. I find it easier to do. I feel great because of it. So I think these are things that we have to consider, right? If you say, well, I took a golf lesson and it didn't work, you don't understand the game of golf. I tried learning a foreign language, but that month was a hard month, so I stopped. No. The work-reward relationship means long, continuous, repetitive efforts in order to gather the reward that you want. Same with building your business, same with learning anything, same with the relationships. So we have to remember that these are kind of a summary point of things that get in the way. They stop or derail success. That's the pursuit of excitement over purpose. That's imprudent priorities, majoring into minors. That's shortcuts that always catch up with you. It's self-deceit. It's anything other than a passionate love affair for the truth. And it is also unrealistic expectations about a work versus reward relationship. So if you do those things, I think it's going to help you out, and then we can go slay dragons together.